welcome back to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. I'm Michelle from Craftie, and today I'm going to be showing you a card using the Craft a Flower layering die set from Altenew. I chose the Daisy, but you can get these in lots of different kinds of flowers. I just really wanted to do the Daisy. I mentioned in a previous video that I was really fond of the African daisies or the Gerbera daisies, and I mentioned one that was the white with the navy and purple in the center, but I decided that I wanted to do the brightly colored ones. So I went through my stash and I just had fun pulling out all kinds of patterned papers. I thought that would be so much fun for the bright, colorful daisies. I was really in a mood for spring. So I went ahead and did all my die cutting off screen to save a little bit of time in the video. Like I said, I was just going through all of my pattern papers and it took quite a while. And I wanted you guys to see the fun part of putting together these colorful flowers. I used tone on tone, that way you just sort of get a textural look. That's a polka dot, and I thought that was really, really fun. And then here was a floral type of thing, which is a lot of fun. Another floral here. And I kind of did two pinks. I thought this one was more of a pink, and this was almost like a red. My yellow here is a plaid. You can barely tell that. It was a really faded out look. And then a printed floral pattern here, and another polka dot. And I just backed all of those with a darker solid color. And let me show you guys what I did there. On our die set here, this main piece here is your backer. That's going to give you a little bit of a shadow. That'll show your center color and give you a base to build on. And the matching one over here cuts out the petals. And this one is a little bit bigger. I just randomly did some of both of the different sizes. And this one here in a larger one, as you can see when you cut out the petals, you get two separate pieces that you'll assemble there. And on the smaller one here, that all comes in one piece. And these here are our flower centers. I've got some of those, and I did those in different bright, colorful colors too. I've got some in orange, a couple in yellow, and even a couple in green. I used kind of a pattern paper for those also. All three of those were like a watercolor wash, and because of that I decided not to use these pieces here. And this one, because what those cut out sort of make a color shading to give you your shadows, which I felt I kind of already got with the watercolor wash. But this gives you a guide on the back here. If you're doing solid color cardstocks, you may want to do that. You can see here they've got it in a brown and how it makes the shadowed areas there. So that'll be a lot of fun if you're using solid colors. I just didn't think I needed it with the watercolor wash. So I'm going to move these aside. And I'll bring in my leaf pieces. So here are my leaf pieces. You've got a single and a double. And I'll show you guys a little bit about how I did some inking on those in a minute also. And that was again from these open solid pieces. That's our background that we're going to build on. And then you've got these pieces here that you'll want to cut in a little bit darker of a green, and then these in even darker, so that you can layer those on, and it shows you again on the back how to build that. So these are my second layer for my double leaves, and then that's the second layer for the single. And then those little pieces here, I'm going to put these up here. Okay, so this is how these leaves started out. And I'm going to hold them up so that maybe you guys can see. It was a little bit of a streaky sort of watercolor look. And I really liked that, but I thought the color was a little too light. And I wanted to darken it up a little bit. So what I did with all of those was I just took some Distress Oxide ink in Rustic Wilderness, which I love. I love Rustic Wilderness. So I wanted to keep that streaky look, so that made my job a whole lot easier. All I had to do was just kind of swipe some color on and make sure that I'm streaky and messy about it. And if you've got a patterned paper in a color that you already like, then that goes along with the theme that we were doing here, which is just all patterned papers without much inking or coloring or anything like that. I just really wanted to darken those a little bit was all. So I'm going to get my art glitter glue and my jewel picker, and we're just going to start building flowers and leaves. And I like using a liquid glue for projects like this because it gives you a little bit of time to work and move that around and make sure you've got it lined up the way you want it. You don't want something that's going to stick too quickly on you. So I'm going to show you guys on this one how it looks when you line it up just right on the top there, and then you'll see along the bottom and some other places on the edges there you've got some of that solid backer showing through. And here's one of our larger flower that the petal piece comes off in 2 pieces. So I'll show you guys one of those also. So some of these petals will line up exactly or almost exactly, and some others are going to be offset, giving you that shadow and that layered look. And with this die set, you don't even have to use the layers. You could use the individual pieces by themselves if you wanted to do that. Leave off some pieces if you want. Like you guys saw, I left out the shading pieces on my flower centers, and that's perfectly fine. You can even do some ink blending around the edges if you wanted to give a little bit of shading that way. But I really wanted it to be about the die cut shapes in our pretty patterned papers. So I'm just going to continue building flowers. So there we've got all of our flowers, and as you guys can see, I varied them a little bit. I wasn't super picky about how I lined everything up, as long as I knew that it was twisted in the right direction with, you know, the right petals. If it overlapped or gave a little different shadow than some of the other ones, that was great. So now for the centers, I'm going to use my jewel picker for that. And I'll just be honest with you guys, I didn't pay one bit of attention to which center that was that went with which flower. I just cut some out, and that's what I'm using, and it doesn't really matter to me. Like I said, if they're all a little different, I think that's great. Those look great. So now we're going to build our leaves. So we've got our first layer there. This is our second layer. It lines up with those bottom points. And after you do a few, you won't have to refer to your diagram anymore. We've got this piece on the bottom leaf and this piece on the top leaf. This piece goes kind of right up that center vein of the leaf. And this one goes against the top edge of that bottom leaf. And for our single leaf, our second layer is going to line up with the tip end, and on our third layer, the bigger piece here also lines up with that tip end. And our small one lines up with the curve of our second layer right down here at the base. And it's kind of hard not to be messy with that art glitter glue, but it does dry clear, so that's going to be just fine. And I think that's a really pretty leaf. I'm going to go ahead and finish assembling all of my leaves off screen to save a little bit of time, and then we'll be back to build our cards. Okay, now we've got all kinds of flowers and leaves, and we're ready to build some cards. And I thought I would do a 2-for-1. The first thing I want to do is just do one card, and I want my flowers hanging off the edge, and I'm just going to play around with that, and whatever I cut loose I'm going to try to reuse and do a second card. And I'm just going to lay it out and see what I think. I think I'm happy with that configuration, and that's going to leave these two complete flowers for my next card. And I want everything to stay right like that, so I'm going to bring in some washi tape and just tape those together right like that. Now I can kind of lift these up and get some glue underneath and make sure everything stays together. The back of that so I can adhere it all in one piece to the front of my card. And the same thing for the flowers on the top. And then carefully peel away my washi tape. So now I'm just going to trim away everything that hangs over the edge. I think that's really pretty. That leaves us room there for a sentiment, and we can use our leftover pieces for another design on another card. Okay, so on my second card, I think I want flowers just along the bottom. And these pieces here that are cut straight across are perfect to start building from. And I've got foam strips on the back of these. And these pieces that are left here, I can tuck them in behind and hide that cut edge. I kind of mapped out the last one and did it with the washi tape, but on this one I'm just kind of playing it by ear. And I'm just gluing it as I go. I think I'm going to cut some of these off anyway, so that they look like they're tucked down in behind the flowers. I'm going to cut along this one so I can tuck just one leaf up in there. And now we just trim that off. Now all we have to do is put a sentiment on there. And these are A2 size cards. They're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And they'll both fit in my MISTI. So I'm just going to go ahead and put both of those in there, and I can stamp the sentiments at once. And I'm just going to use sentiments from my Waffle Flower Tender Blooms set that you guys saw me do a card with before. And we'll just stamp see the flowers smiling. And smile, it looks good on you on the other card. And I'm just going to stamp that in Versafine Onyx Black. I think those are absolutely beautiful. They're so bright and cheerful, and it just makes me think about springtime. And they're so fun and playful with the pattern papers. I really had a lot of fun with these. If you guys have seen my channel, then you know that I love die cutting, and I would take die cutting over stamping and coloring any day. I just love the extra layer they add and the dimension you can get and all the fun you can add to the color just with the pattern papers like this. So when you go over to ScrapbookPal.com, be sure to check out all of the other Craftie flower sets that you can get from Altenew. They've got daisies, they've got anemones, they've got roses, they've got so many different layering flower die sets, and they are so much fun, you guys. I really love these. So be sure to subscribe to the Scrapbook Pal YouTube channel if you're not already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.